Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is not a celebration, and it is not a gathering for comfort or praise. This is not the warm cradle of hope, nor the naive lullaby of light. This is where we confront what rots beneath, what slithers in silence, what whispers when the candles are out. This is the den where truth lies cold on the floor, like skin that's been shed by something that chose not to die, but to transform. We have gathered here under the choking black veil of knowing not to look for salvation, but to stare into the ache, to listen to the quiet scream that has no audience, and to give it a voice, to feed it flame. One of the snake friend is withering, but still won't confess. And you know what that means? You've seen it, maybe in your own mirror, maybe in the eyes of someone who sat beside you, pretending to breathe, pretending to be whole, while their soul was bleeding into silence. Not every pain howls, not every liar is loud, and not every traitor shows his teeth. Some merely rot from within smiling, while their bones turn to dust. And we watch, we always watch. We see the symptoms but refuse to name the disease, because naming is power, and confession is judgment. And no one wants to be the one who speaks the unspeakable first, because in our hearts we know that if we name their collapse, we must acknowledge our own. You see, the snake is a clever thing. It wraps around you in coils of warmth, of friendship, of shared secrets, and long nights of laughter, until one day you find it is not wrapping you, but constricting. And the warmth is not comfort, but a fever. And what you called love was simply a strategy for survival in a world that feeds on the weak. The snake never lies to itself, but it allows you to lie to you. It lets you believe you're different, that you're safe, that your venom is meant for enemies, not allies until you taste it yourself. One drop of truth, and suddenly your throat burns with everything you pretended not to feel. The friend is withering, and you can smell it in their words. They still speak, but nothing lives behind their voice. It's a puppet act, a marionette made of flesh, twitching on borrowed momentum. And even though their body still walks, the spirit is sinking like a ship with a hole in its will. They won't confess, not because they can't, but because they won't. They refuse to be seen as weak, because in the jungle of shadows, confession is surrender, and surrender is death. And we taught them that, didn't we? We all did. We told them strength is silence, resilience is suppression, and pain is personal property not to be shared, not to be treated, just to be buried in shallow graves beneath the ribs. They won't confess, because we made them believe the moment they admit the rot. We will abandon them. We will judge them. We will mark them as one of the fallen. But let me tell you something. Every one of us is withering in some way. Every one of us has a secret wound. We've refused to lance because we're afraid of what will crawl out of it. And still, we pretend. Still we march with our masks polished and our smiles sharpened like knives, and we dare to call this survival when it's nothing but a slow suicide in costume. Why is it that the one who withers must be the one to confess, when all of us know, when all of us feel the decay pressing against the glass of our perfect images? We say nothing. We act blind because it's easier to watch someone die in denial than to step into the fire and drag them out. We call it respect, we call it space, but really it's fear. It's cowardice wrapped in etiquette. We pretend not to notice the shaking hands, the absent gaze, the laughter that ends too quickly, because if we see them, we might have to see ourselves. I ask you tonight, who among you has not worn the skin of a snake? Who among you has not faked the light to keep others from seeing the shadows within? Who among you has not smiled while dying inside, hoping no one would ask the wrong question? Because then you would have to answer. you would have to admit that something is cracking, something is wrong, and worse, you would have to explain why you let it fester so long. There is a sickness in the soul, and it thrives on secrecy. It feeds on the silence between words and grows stronger in the spaces where truth should have been spoken. The friend is not just withering. They are evaporating piece by piece from the inside out, and still they hide it. They wear their wounds like medals, invisible, but earned through suffering because we taught them. Pain is something noble if you don't talk about it. That scars are beautiful if they're hidden, and strength is only real if it bleeds in private. But what is the point of surviving if you're hollow? What is the point of breathing if you've buried your real self in a casket of denial? If you keep living, but never live. If you keep smiling, but never feel. If you keep going, but never grow. Then what are you but a ghost pretending to be flesh? The friend is withering, and they think no one sees. But I see, and maybe you see too. And if you do, then you owe them more than your silence. You owe them your fire, you owe them your voice. You owe them the truth, not the soft truth, not the polished truth, not the one dipped in sugar and lies, but the truth that burns the truth, that peels the skin back and shows the wound for what it is. Raw, infected, but still savable. You owe them the truth. That healing only begins when the pretending ends, when the masks fall, when the shadows are not exiled, but embraced. When we sit with the broken and say, I will not run, I will not look away, I will not let you die in the dark while I light candles for others who never needed saving. This speech tonight is not for comfort. It is not for peace. It is a call to arms. For the war that rages inside, for the battle we ignore, because it is quiet and personal and shameful. This is for the ones who are withering and for the ones who watch them and pretend not to notice. This is for the confessions never spoken, the screams never released, the sorrow never acknowledged. This is for the snake that sheds its skin but keeps the venom. This is for the friend who is dying in plain sight and still thinks their death must be invisible. But no more. Not tonight. Tonight we name it. We face it. We drag it into the light and dare it to kill it. Because if we must die, let it be in truth, not an illusion. If we must suffer, let it be with dignity, not silence. If we must walk through fire, let us do it, hand in hand screaming, if we must, but never alone, never again, alone. We are not saints here, and we are not gods. We are flawed, bleeding things, crawling toward meaning, clawing through the mud of our mistakes, with fingernails made of doubt and guilt. We are animals that learn to lie, animals that learn to smile while lying. And now we wear civility like it's a crown. But inside, some of us are cracking with every heartbeat, and the silence is growing louder. It hums behind every polite nod, every forced laugh, every "I'm fine" that tastes like ash in the mouth. One of the snake friend is withering, but still won't confess. And we must ask, why must we beg for truth from the dying? Must we always wait until the funeral to admit we saw the signs? Do we only honor pain once it becomes poetic? Do we only care once it's carved in a gravestone? And if so, then what are we but gravekeepers? Not friends, not allies, not warriors but watchers. Quiet, obedient watchers, afraid to interfere in the beautiful decay of someone we once said we loved. And what is love if not confrontation? What is loyalty if it does not scream when silence means death? What is friendship if it does not burn with fury when one of us begins to vanish beneath the weight of their own secrets? Do you think the snake does not feel the rot? Do you think they do not wake in the night and wonder if this is it? The last thread snapping the final fracture before the fall. They know. but knowing and speaking are oceans apart, and pride is a beast that would rather starve than kneel in fear. Is its mate whispering always? You will lose them if you show them what you've become. They won't confess because they don't believe in forgiveness anymore. Not real forgiveness. Not the kind that reaches into the filth and says, I still see you in there. I still know who you were before the poison. They think confession is a doorway to exile, that if they say it aloud, the world will change color and all the hands will drop away. They think we will recoil, that we will run. And maybe they're right, because haven't we run before? Haven't we walked away from those who became too inconvenient, too fragile, too broken to entertain? But not this time. No, not again. This is the turning point. This is where we stop being voyeurs of suffering and become architects of redemption. This is where we stop asking them to confess and start confessing ourselves. We must speak first. We must show them that bleeding is not a crime, that truth is not a weapon, and pain does not make you unworthy of connection. We must break before them and say, look, I am flawed too. I am ruined and raw, and yet I stand, and I will stand for you, even if you fall. Because if we do not hold space for the broken, we do not deserve the whole. If we do not cherish the dying, we are not worthy of the living. If we let them wither in silence while we pretend we did not notice, then their death is our doing too. And maybe it's not a death of flesh, but a death of spirit, a hollowing out of soul until nothing is left but the image. And if that is not hell, then what is? You must understand, this is not about saving them. This is about remembering that they were never lost. They are still there. Beneath the rot, beneath the poison, beneath the walls. Built from betrayal and silence, they are still there, and they are waiting for someone to say, you do not have to do this alone. You never had to. This is not weakness, this is war, and you are allowed to bleed in battle. So tonight I ask you to remember the face of that friend, the one who doesn't cry anymore, the one who jokes too often, the one who disappears for days and comes back with a smile stitched too tight, the one whose eyes do not match their words. Remember them, hold them in your mind like a dying flame, and ask yourself, how many times did I walk away when I should have stayed? How many times did I stay silent when I should have roared? How many times did I see them slipping and chose not to reach? One of the snake friend is withering, but still won't confess. And that should haunt you, that should keep you awake. Because if they fall, it will not be the silence that killed them. It will be the silence that surrounded them. Yours, mine, all of ours, the silence of people who claimed to care but were too afraid to prove it, who said they loved them but placed conditions on that love, who admired their strength but turned away when they became fragile. This is the reckoning. This is the mirror. None of us want, but all of us need. This is the truth that tastes like fire but heals like rain. We cannot pretend anymore. We cannot perform compassion without paying its price, and the price is vulnerability. The price is truth. The price is being the first to fall to our knees and say, I see you. I see what you hide, and I will not let it consume you without a fight. Even if they hiss, even if they bite, even if they deny it with every breath, we must stay. We must show them that the rot can be cut out, that the venom can be drained, that the skin can be shed, not in shame, but in rebirth. Because snakes do not only represent betrayal, they represent transformation. They are the symbol of change of death and life cycling through the same body over and over until something new emerges, something raw and real and resurrected. And maybe that's what we must tell them. Not to confess, but to change. Not to admit defeat, but to rise through it, not to beg for forgiveness, but to offer themselves another chance to evolve. We must remind them that withering is not the end. It is a warning, a signal that something must break, so something else can grow, that the soil is still fertile if they will only plant again. But that seed must be truth. The seed must be self. No lies, no masks, no games, no smiles that hide decay, just raw, aching honesty. The kind that bleeds, the kind that trembles, the kind that hurts to speak, but heals to share. We must give them a space where that kind of honesty is not punished, but praised. Where confession is not weakness, but an act of rebellion against a world that worships silence and shuns pain. So rise now, all of you who hear these words. Rise in your darkness, rise in your shadows, rise in your shame, and say enough. Enough of pretending, enough of watching, enough of letting our friends die while we clap for their courage to suffer in silence. This is not courage. This is cruelty, and it ends now. We do not wait for the confession. We demand the transformation, and we start by transforming ourselves. We start by speaking the truth, even if our voices shake, even if our eyes flood, even if our hands are stained with the guilt of every time we walked away. We speak, because if we do not, the silence will consume us too, and we will become just another ghost in someone else's story. Another name in the list of those who almost saved someone but didn't. Tonight, the snake does not die tonight. It sheds. Tonight, it survives. Not because it was strong, but because someone reached through the rot and pulled it into the light, because someone dared to believe that even the withering deserved to bloom again. So go find them, the one who hides their decay behind smiles, the one who speaks in riddles, the one who jokes about death like it's a game. Go to them and tell them. You see it. Tell them. You know. And you will not let them fall. Tell them this is not a speech. This is a sword, and you will wield it for them, even if they hate you for it. Because love that does not fight is not love at all. It is cowardice in disguise. Let them confess in their own time, but let them know this. You are not afraid of their truth, and you will never run from their ruin, because you too have ruined, and you too have bled, and maybe that makes you the only one strong enough to hold them through it. One of the snake friend is withering, but they don't have to die, not today. Not if you rise, not if we all rise, not if we burn away this silence and make room for something real. Let it begin now. Let it begin with you. Let the darkness speak. Let the truth bleed. Let the transformation begin. And so it continues, because this transformation is not a moment. It is not a flicker. It is a sustained fire that must burn through every lie we have ever wrapped ourselves in, and every false comfort we have ever offered, instead of courage. The friend who withers in silence is not the only one. We have all withered in our own ways, and we will do it again if we don't learn to tell the truth before the pain becomes irreversible. There is something primal about watching someone fade and choosing not to act. It taps into the part of us that fears contamination, the part of us that believes despair is a disease that can jump from soul to soul with one wrong conversation. And so we back away. We offer distance. We offer time. We say things like, they'll come around, or they're just going through something, as if that something isn't a slow self-erasure, as if what they're going through doesn't end with a bottle, or a rope, or a disappearing act that no one saw coming, though we all did. One of the snake friend is withering, and they won't confess. But confession isn't the only way to be saved. Sometimes you don't need a speech. You need a hand. Sometimes you don't need to hear. I understand. You just need to know someone stayed and stayed and stayed, no matter how dark it got. no matter how ugly it became, no matter how many masks fell and shattered on the floor. We live in a world obsessed with strength, but blind to endurance. We idolize those who fight, but ignore those who endure silently. As the walls close in, we forget that it takes monumental strength to wake up in pain and still move through the day, pretending to be whole, pretending to function, pretending to care, when every cell in the body is screaming for escape. The withering ones are the strongest of all, and yet we abandon them first because we don't know what to do with their truth, because their pain reflects our own, and we are not ready to confront that mirror. But we must, if we want to become more than spectators in the arena of suffering. We must become warriors, not just for ourselves, but for the ones who forgot how to fight, who gave up the sword because they believed no one would stand with them when the blade came down. We must be their shield, their scream, their storm, their salvation. We must tell them, I will not let you vanish. I will not let you rot unseen. I will not let your silence be the last thing you are remembered for. Maybe they will resist. Maybe they will lash out. Maybe they will deny everything because pride is a vicious guardian of despair. It won't go down quietly, but let them resist. Let them scream. Let them call you cruel or invasive or wrong. And still stay, because that scream is not hate. It is fear. It is grief. It is the voice of a soul that has been alone too long and does not know how to accept rescue without suspicion. And if they never say thank you, if they never confess, if they never acknowledge that you reached for them still, you do it still. You show up, because this is not about applause. It is about redemption. This is not about recognition. It is about resurrection. This is not about fixing them. It is about reminding them that they are not broken, only buried. We have this obsession with healing, with closure, with the polished end. But life doesn't work that way. Some wounds never close. Some truths never become palatable. Some stories never get tidy resolutions. But that doesn't mean they aren't worth living. It doesn't mean they aren't worth saving. The snake, who withers, may never fully return. But if they find even one moment of light, because you stayed, because you spoke, because you refused to let them die in the quiet, then it was worth everything. Every hard word, every angry denial, every sleepless night spent worrying if they'd still be here in the morning. Because in the end, it is not about whether they confess, it is about whether you cared enough to listen, even when they didn't speak. It is about whether you loved them enough to see through the lies, the performance, the poison, and find the fragile truth cowering behind the fangs. And if you're the one who's withering, if you're the one hiding behind the venom and the pride and the polished silence, then hear this now. You do not have to confess today. You do not have to bleed in public. You do not have to explain the anatomy of your suffering to people who have never known your pain. But you must not disappear. You must not rot in secrecy. You must not convince yourself that your silence is noble and your endurance a badge of honor. It is not. It is a cage, and you deserve to break it. If no one has said it to you, let me say it now. You are allowed to be weak. You are allowed to be broken. You are allowed to not be okay. And you are allowed to speak about it without shame. There is no medal for dying quietly. There is no trophy for pretending longer than others. You are not a burden. You are a battlefield. And the fact that you are still here, breathing, thinking, listening, means you are not defeated. The confession can come later, or not at all. What matters is that you begin to speak, begin to breathe, begin to ask for something more than survival. You were not born to wither. You were born to rise, not in perfection but in power, not in silence but in symphony. We all have snake within us, parts that coil and bite and poison what we love. But we also have the choice to shed that skin, to evolve to emerge from the decay with something new, burning behind our eyes. And if you are the one watching someone you love rot from the inside out, then you must stop waiting for permission to act. Stop waiting for them to collapse completely before you move. Stop pretending that silence is respect, because it is not. It is consent to their erasure, and you will never forgive yourself for letting them go when you could have stayed. Say something now. Do something now. Burn the bridge to their silence, if you must. But do not let them wither, believing no one noticed. One of the snake friend is withering, but still won't confess. But maybe they don't need to. Maybe they just need you to believe they're worth saving before they're gone. And now we stand at the edge of everything. There is no applause at the end of this kind of truth, no ovation for staring into the void and naming it. But that's not why we speak. That's not why we stay. We do it because the price of silence is too high. The cost of watching someone we love wither without stepping in is a weight that never leaves us. It lives under the skin. It grows in the bones. It sings in the moments of stillness, when we remember the laugh that faded, the voice that stopped, the presence that vanished. We do it because we know what it means to be the snake. We know the art of silence, the craft of deception. We know how to smile while dying, how to nod while drowning, how to say I'm fine with such conviction that even we start to believe it. And in that knowing, we carry the power to change something. Not everything, but something. And sometimes something is enough to keep someone alive. One of the snake friend is withering, but still won't confess. And maybe they never will. Maybe the words will stay locked behind their teeth forever. Maybe the shame is too thick, the pride too sharp. Maybe their silence is their last defense against collapse. But our love cannot be conditional on their honesty. Our loyalty cannot hinge on their willingness to bleed in front of us. We must love them anyway, loudly, fiercely, without apology. We must reach even when they pull away. We must speak even when they deny it. We must fight even when they beg us not to. Because if we don't, who will? If we don't believe they're worth saving, then why should they? Let us be the ones who break the cycle. Let us be the ones who stop pretending. Let us be the ones who tear down the myth that strength means silence and pain is personal. Let us be the ones who tell the truth, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Tonight, the air is heavy with everything unspoken, but it doesn't have to stay that way. We can open the windows, we can let it out. We can flood the darkness with our voices. We can scream if we have to, cry if we must. But above all, we must be real, because only the real can save the dying. And only the brave can stand by the broken without asking them to be fixed. The friend may still wither, but they will not do it unseen, and they will not do it unloved. And you who listened, you who remembered, you who felt this in your bones, you are now responsible, not for fixing them, but for no longer turning away. The rot stops here. The silence ends here. The confession may never come, but the fire has already begun, and it started with you. Let it burn, let it purify, let it transform, because even snakes can be reborn, and even the withering can rise.